Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Welcome to Studio Live today and to Creative Studio Live. Is that what we call this? It's something like that. Today we're talking all about songwriting. So how can you create your best music? How can you write the best possible songs? And we've got some people here tonight that are much more proficient at songwriting than I am, and I'm giving him a big boost here, but I'm probably overselling it here. It's Mr. Mike from Creative Source. How are you this evening, Mike?
I'm so good. I feel so good already because you got the name of the show wrong, and that's made me feel like better about my stuff ups from the past.
What do we call this? It's something like that. Yeah,
it's Creative Studio Live. Yes,
Creative Studio Live. What do they call Creative Source Live? Creative Studio Live. I don't know. We've done well so far. What is happening in the world of Creative Source?
I tell you what, it's been another very exciting week for me. It's been great. But what I did do was I put out a video about free drum plugins, which I did 5 of them because you have to do 5 on YouTube.
Everything's 5 on YouTube.
Everything's 5 on YouTube. And what is a reminder to me? It was a reminder that we're so blessed in these days, aren't we? We've got our garage band on our phone that we can make studio quality recordings with. We've got all kinds of things. We get free plugins, we get free DAWs. And you know what, though? There's one thing that's missing. Quincy Jones said it. He said the most important thing is the song, the song, the song. And what a great segue into tonight's show.
What a brilliant segue. It's almost like you planned that and pre-wrote it and spent hours crafting it. Yes. We actually, us two could talk about songwriting for probably an hour, but we're going to bring on someone who has a heap of experience in that, and we're going to add him into the stream right now, and that is Mr. Brian Henderson Ward from Melbourne. And hello to you, Brian. How are you this evening?
I'm very well, thanks, Pete, and hi to Mike as well. It's a real pleasure to be here with you guys.
Oh, it is awesome because Brian is the Melbourne coordinator of the Australian Songwriters Association. So I think we've got someone who is far too qualified to be on this show. So see you, Brian. We're going to continue on that. No, Brian also is the founder of Wax Lyrical, which we need to talk more about, an open mic night for songwriters that runs in every state and territory here in Australia. And, he's just a multi-award winning songwriter as well. So, we will talk more to Brian, obviously, about some of that stuff, but Brian has joined us to help us talk about tips for writing better songs. And if you all ask nicely enough, we might even get Brian to play a little tune to play us out at the end of the show. So I'm in the lucky seat that I get to moderate here because I've got these two fine gentlemen to talk all about their best songwriting tips. So as we always do, our guest gets to serve. So we're going to throw over to Brian without any further ado and say, Brian, what is one of your tips that you would give our viewers here today for writing better songs?
Okay. A question that's often asked is, how do you write a song? And the best answer to that is, why do you want to write one? So actually sitting down knowing what you want to write about is a really good starting point. If you're just going to sit down and start fiddling with chords and melodies and lyrics, yes, songs can come out of that. But if you actually got a targeted idea, and a tip that goes along with this is great songs can fall out of great titles. So keep your titles, write them down, and a whole song can fall out of that. A while ago, I thought of a title, and I haven't written the song yet. And I'm going to give you guys the title, and one of you might write it before I do.
I like this.
But I was in a conversation with someone a while ago, and I said to them, "Look, you don't need to go looking for trouble because trouble comes looking." And then I went, "Ding! Trouble comes looking." It's a great title for a song. It's just waiting to be written.
Yeah. I love that, and it's that funny thing of like, what do you do, the cart before the horse thing? And I think sometimes you need that motivation to be able to write it. And I like the idea of having a title or a premise or an idea, and often it's just one word or a phrase that sort of gets in your head that sparks a song. Excellent tip, and we're off to a flying start here. We're going to do probably 5 tips each year. I reckon we get at least 10 solid tips from these two. Mike, that's a good one. Can you live up to that? You got anything
really good, really good? And just as a note to the people watching, if you've got any song titles that you coming into your head now.
Yes.
Mike is awesome. Already taken. Already done that one. So that one's not available to you. But it was a really good point, and very similar to my first point. I was like, did he steal my notes? I was wondering. But so my first point, actually, the title of my first point is "Why Are You Writing the Song?" Strangely enough, but a slightly different angle for you here. And the reason I came up with that as an idea is that there's two sort of basic types of songwriting. There's what I'm going to call therapeutic songwriting, whereas you're just doing it for yourself and you're just doing it for fun, and you may get out all kinds of emotions or whatever you want to do with songwriting, or just for a bit of fun. And then the other type is where you have an intention to communicate with other people. And that's what most of us are doing. And for me, that's an important question and a consideration. Do you hope to communicate something to other people? And I think that when you have that in mind, then there are certain things that you have to consider, such as there's different ways that we communicate with other people. And a lot of it is culturally driven. A lot of it is there's certain methods used for communication in, movies, book writing, and in songwriting. There's a kind of a set of norms. Now, I'm not saying that you have to follow the rules, but I think it's really worth considering some of those things, which I'm going to touch on in some of my other points. But I think it's a key point. Now, if you're going to do it for yourself, just do it however you want to do it.
Yeah. Like you say, why are you writing the song? And look, it might be to express something personal, or you might actually be writing for a political cause. You might be writing for somebody's birthday, and it's just a one-off song that'll only be used at one event. But definitely, it's a great way to share your thoughts. And also your political views, and also to make people laugh at a birthday party.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, know your why is super important, and we've got some folks here commenting along those lines as well. So our man here, Aramasia, says Simon Sinek, who, if you don't know Simon Sinek, go look him up on YouTube. He does some really good things. Start with why. He wrote a book and did a speech about that. And yes, everything that you can do, if you start with why, it's gonna give you your purpose, and then you're gonna be able to get on and do really good things. If you are here live, hello to you. I'm gonna say a quick hello to everyone here that is in the live stream. So Aramasia, we've said g'day to. We've got Storm Plays Music here. We've got Darren Bryant, who says, good morning, Mr. Pete and Mr. Mike. That was before we had Mr.
Darren.
Bryant as well.
Yep.
G'day to Vache from Recording Studio 9. Says hello to Brian there as well. And yes, we've got, what have we got? Mr. Johan Oliver. The reason for writing most songs, from my perspective, is telling my story, conveying my thoughts and feelings. The outcome generally reflects my emotional status at the time. And that's probably going to be a precursor, because I'm pretty sure we're going to be talking about feels and the emotions and the thoughts and the expressions and other things. And if we're not, then I'll be very surprised. So we will continue on. I also have some comments here, which I'll actually let the gentlemen do another tip each, and then I'll jump back, because I asked this question in the community tab on my YouTube channel here during the week, and some folks gave me some great suggestions there. But let's continue on, and we'll volley back over to Brian for another tip from you about writing better songs.
Well, that last comment was the perfect segue into my next point, which is before I give the tip, I'll just give a background thing, and that is that songwriters, and look, I'm not saying all songwriters, there's so many genres that this does not apply to, but I'm just going to talk in general through my own experience of songwriting. So most songwriters, they start by writing out their emotions and their feelings, wanting to communicate and touch base with other people based on their own stories and their emotions, just as the last commenter spoke.
Yep.
I think it's really vitally important that we also, through that process, which is a kind of a therapy thing that we do for ourselves and hoping to connect that with other people. Mm-hmm. But it's also important that we step outside of ourselves, that we attempt to write the stories of others, that we might be moved by a story that we've heard in the news. We might be moved by a movie that we've seen. We may even make up fictional characters and tell a story from pure fiction, which actually is a lot of fun to do that. So while this emotional thing is a therapy thing, what we're doing is turning crap into gold. It's alchemy. All those things that are knotting you up inside, and we're making it into a tangible product that you actually end up loving. So it is literally alchemy. So, but at the same time, it's important to venture outside of yourself.
That is gold. Yeah, I really like that, and I've got some comments about that, but I'm going to let Mike talk first because we know Mike.
I just wanted a note on that because it reminded me of something, and you know, because I spent many years trying to only write from my own personal experience because I felt that's authentic and what have you. And but one of my favorite songwriters is a guy called Justin Curry from a band called Delametrio. Years ago, I used to be fanatical about them.
Nothing ever happens, Mike. Nothing happens at all.
He's a great songwriter, lyricist. And I was watching a new sort of show with him, and he was playing his old songs, and he was being interviewed. And I always thought, God, this guy had a tragic life. You know, he's whiskey, addicted to whiskey. He's had all these relationships. He's had his heart broken a million times. And he writes about it so descriptively. And he's been interviewed about it. And he said, no, none of it's about me at all. None of those things ever happened to me. And I was a little disappointed, I got to say, but it was amazing. I thought, wow, that guy really fooled me for decades. Good on him. But anyway, moving on. So this is a quick one, and I stole this. Well, I didn't really steal it. This point was made by a good friend of ours, Ron, when he was answering you on social media, Pete, a couple of days ago, and he said this very simple thing: have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I think what that says to me, it's something about structure. You know, and it's almost like what I was saying earlier. If you want to communicate a message to other people, we do live in a culture where storytelling has had a kind of a structure to it. Again, I'm not saying don't venture outside of the norms, not at all, but I'm saying it's generally understood that the way we convey messages is with that kind of structure, or a story with that kind of structure. So I think that's worth just keeping in mind, a simple thing like that. And it reminds me of a movie I watched a few months ago. And it was called What Happened in the End, and it had no ending to the movie. It was such a disappointment. I wasted 2 hours of my life with that thing, and it was seriously terrible, right? It was really bad, and I thought, don't do that. Don't try and be so arty that you don't convey anything. I mean, that's my personal opinion, obviously.
Yeah, and the whole idea of the beginning, the middle, the end, and having the flow that runs consistently through it. A huge mistake that young songwriters often make is to veer off course from into another sort of story or realm, and having that consistency so that a song comes full circle, bites itself in the bum, then you know you've got a great song.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
everyone loves a good callback. Love it. Nice work. So we've got some more comments here. The folks here in the comments are doing a fantastic job. If you are here live and you're getting some value, make sure that you check out Mike's channel. We will put some links to some of Brian's online stuff as well. I haven't got that there yet, but we'll get that in the description after the show as well, so you can check that out. Darren just wanted to confirm that, yes, he did say that before we saw Brian there, so he wasn't being rude. But here, normally wake up and write a whole song that I dreamt or sometimes even sang in my dream. That's why there's paper and pen next to my bed, and again, I fathom that we'll probably talk about something around this as well. But yes, I have the new version, which is my phone next to my bed. I've actually got scratchy voice recordings of myself going, I'm like, what the heck was I saying? I'm sure that was a great song idea that I'll never know. Now, what I want to do here is I want to jump over, because some folks that can't be with us live, it's like the telegrams that you have at a wedding. There's some folks that can't be with us tonight, so I'd like to tell. Do people still have telegrams at weddings, or am I just showing my age here? Probably both. So I just wanted to mention, I put this out on my community tab here on Facebook? No, on YouTube. And some folks were kind enough to answer. I said, what is your best tip for someone writing a song? So I love this one from Alex. It says, if you're, for some reason, too afraid to start from scratch, you can just make a cover of your favorite or not so favorite song, but in a different style, harmony, arrangement. Be careful going this way, because you just can't stop making covers and mash up. So yes, write covers, but yes, make them lead to some original stuff would be my tip with that, unless you want to be a cover artist, which there's nothing wrong with. Seth Flower, don't let your feelings hurt when someone doesn't want to listen to it, because that will definitely happen. Yes, all songwriters have had that feeling, I'm sure, where people don't want to listen to your tunes, and that's also okay. Amelia Solholm says, don't expect to be perfect. Your first songs will not be amazing, and that's just how it is. Don't give the first songs as much time as the songs with more experience. Just try it out, get warmed up, maybe even try to find your sound, and good luck to you. And I like this one from Fur Cry. It's going to suck in the beginning, but it gets better and better with practice. I think that's gold. So thank you to those folks. We'll return there to chat to the, well, not to chat, to see the folks' comments there on the community tab as we continue on here. But we've got some more tips to get to. So we're going to throw it back over to Brian and go for your tip number 3.
Just a comment on one of those comments, the comment about don't be too upset when people don't want to listen to your songs. My daughter, I said to her a while ago when she was about 14, said, I've just written this new song. Will you have a listen to it for me? She goes, well, that depends. And I said, it depends on what? She goes, do I have to listen? Right.
That is gold. That's going to be the clip. That's going on Instagram as like the clip. It's like, watch this show because this guy's fun. All right. Let's go.
My next tip, look, it's an old, well-worn saying, less is more. If you, this is a process that I always put my songs through when I feel like I've got the basic right of it down, then I'll go through it and I'll trim away any excess fat. And that can be musically or lyrically. There's nothing worse than a song being held up by unnecessary chords and lyrics that are too many for to fit in properly, when you could easily change that to be less. And if you can communicate a message or paint a picture with the least amount of words possible, obviously this doesn't apply to rap, but if you can, generally in my style of writing, if I can write my vision of the song out, my lyric, using the fewest amount of words, the better it is.
Less is more. Keep it simple, sucker. Yes, I like that tip, and it's something that we can portray. And you've raised a good point there, and I'll cut off Mike before he can start talking, but you've raised a good point here, which is that we're all probably of a similar ilk, which is that we're all singer-songwriters. We all love playing acoustic guitars, as we can see by the fact that Brian has acoustic guitars sitting next to him, and I have one sitting behind me. So yes, we want to keep in mind here that writing songs and songwriting and music production is not just about grabbing an acoustic guitar and sitting by a campfire and belting out a folk song. It can be a different genre. It can be beats. It can be rhythms. It can be all sorts of things. So yes, if you're thinking, these 3 guys are all just going to sit here and talk about how you've got to write meaningful from the heart songs that are really about all the things. Not always. And I'm sure we'll get to that as we continue. And I've probably preempted some of your future comments, but now I'm going to let Mike talk. Well, or we're going to let Brian talk.
Now, I did want to pick up on a comment myself, because Vachi there from Recording Studio 9 was saying how he writes songs which he's dreamt or have been influenced by his dreams. And that's a good idea. I've just got a little bit of caution with that. It can come out a little bit like Brian walked into my bathroom. It didn't look like Brian, but I knew it was him. And then Pete fell out of the sky and I woke up. So dreams aren't always that awesome, weird, but anyway, no structure to them. That's what I'm saying. But well, anyway,
on that point, just while you're there, one of my tips, actually, this will be a superfluous tip, but is to set your alarm for 5 a.m. in the morning, wake up and write your thoughts down straight away.
Wow.
Go back to sleep after that if you want, but you're in this semi-dream state, and the stuff that comes out of you is actually quite inspired and wonderful in that moment. One morning I woke up and it was really early, and I sat up in bed, plonked my feet on the floor, and my wife said, "I love you, baby." And I said to her, "Bad guys don't believe in love." Song. Ran out to my studio and wrote the song in about 20 minutes. It was done. It was, so inspiration early in the morning with the foggy, sleepy brain.
Mine would be, give me a cup of tea.
Yeah, my song at that time would just be like, I need coffee, I need coffee, I need coffee, I don't have enough sleep, which would not be a great song. Mike, I don't know.
So my point was very, very, very quick. And this is, again, me being a bit boring and talking about structure and stuff, I'm afraid, guys. It's worth having some structure. There's some rules in literature which you can follow. Not that I'm a great, literature sort of person, but things like, for example, this is a classic example. If you're going to write in first person, write the song in first person. Don't go changing around to third person and all that kind of stuff. There are some basic rules which are worth following. And, some of this may be instinct to some of you, but if you're just starting out and you're struggling with songwriting, just try and keep an eye on those things. It sort of goes a little bit back to Brian's point about not having any dead wood in the song, for example, is do edit your songs, go through them, just pick them apart a little bit and go, could I tidy that up? Have I, so that's just a little bit of a thing there about literature.
I really like that. And I like the editing point because, as you were talking about that, and as Brian mentioned earlier, he's about, less is more, and, you can remove some of those things. I look at some of the songs, and I wrote songs and I've recorded them, and now I try to play them. And I've realized that when you're recording, it's okay because you can just do things in takes. When you're then playing the whole song, I don't have enough breath to say all the words in about 50% of my song. So I'm now going, I want to go out and start playing open mic nights. I want to go out and start playing live gigs. I'm like, I need to go to the gym to get enough oxygen to be able to breathe enough to actually sing my own songs because there's too many words. So I need to take your advice on that one. Got some great comments here. I like this one from Michael Purcell because I've heard this story as well that Keith Richards got up from a dream and recorded Satisfaction on a tape recorder. I think Warren Hewitt tells a good story about that. I saw that on his channel recently, and that's a really cool story that he just woke up probably drunk and stoned and many other things, and then hit record on the tape recorder, played down. That's all I can do with that riff. Otherwise, the copyright police come and knock on my door. But yes, played the riff, and then the rest is history. So I really like that. I'm going to jump over here and take a little look at some of the rest of these comments that we had, because one of them is someone who's here live anyway. But I'm going to give his comment here because it's so nicely crafted here. So Aaron Messiah said, person about to write your first song, if you're reading this, you've already read and heard Just Do It, and it's going to suck, and that's okay. And don't try to make a good song, and don't make it for others. So instead of that, I'm going to give you some practical advice. It'll sound silly, but ignore it at your own peril. Don't even look at your DAW's icon after 9:30 p.m. Told you it sounds silly, but again, ignore this advice at your own peril. Next time you're awake at 4:35 a.m., you'll take me seriously. So what do you folks think about that? I like this comment because different people write songs at different times, but I must admit, I've been sitting up trying to record something way too late and then gone, this is the best song ever. And then I wake up the next morning and hit play and go, what on earth was I thinking? This is the worst thing I've ever written.
I personally don't like to write in DAWs. I like to get away from computers and things when I'm writing. And also, and Brian's touched on this a little earlier, the only technology I'll make use of is my phone, really, because it's really good for just that idea, that magic idea. Just hit record and record it quickly. I've got so many video clips on my phone, but I personally, I mean, everyone's different because some people do write in the DAW and they write from bass lines or drum grooves and things like that. But that's a distraction to me. Yeah.
So, what about you, Brian? When and where do you write your best songs? Like, what's your process?
Look, that's a really hard thing to do, to respond to. But I would say that there's a kind of a magic zone that you get into, and some songs that come to you, you feel so blessed that they chose you to enter the world through, and it's like you've learned something in the process by writing this song. You've learned something really valuable, and so I'm not sure how that works. It's like a supernatural, wonderful feeling when that happens, and I've been lucky enough for that to happen to me quite a lot. Whether it affects other people that way, I have no idea. But when you go through that, it's an amazing thing. Moving right along.
Yeah, let's go on. Let's
Yeah,
kick
go
in
for it.
with tip number 4. We're doing well here. We probably will go over time, by the way, folks, 'cause we have 6 minutes, so we have at least 2 more tips each here. So yeah,
Okay.
hang around there, grab yourself another cuppa, because we may be here 10 to 15 minutes of overtime tonight. But Brian, take us away with your 4th tip on songwriting.
Okay. Be open to constructive criticism, and also be able to co-write with people. There's often people will come to me and they'll say, "What do you think of this song?" And at the end of it, I'll say, "Look, that was fabulous. And what about a bridge section, or what about a time change in this section, or a key change?" And then they become all offended, like they haven't presented me with the absolute perfection
He's done it to
that
me
they
loads
believed
of
it was.
times.
Or
He's done it to me so many times, and I'm like, "Oh, what'd you have to ruin it for, Brian?" No, carry on, mate.
and I get really enthusiastic about making suggestions to people, and then I often realize that actually that wasn't necessarily the best thing to do. But when people make suggestions to me, I take them really seriously, and because it's something that when you co-write with someone else, you're producing something that neither one of you could have produced on your own, and therefore it's a work that is beyond you and beyond the other person, and it's greater than the sum of its parts, and it works out to be something really wonderful when it works.
Love it.
Absolutely.
That is brilliant, and I think both Mike and I are involved in a lot of groups all over the internet. But GarageBand users group, and there's the home studio recording zone group, and a lot of the best stuff that comes out of that is when people are collaborating with other people. And I think we're pretty blessed to live in a world where we can be. So I think I mentioned it, but yeah, we've got Brian's over in Melbourne, I'm here in Adelaide, and Mike's in Perth. We're collaborating on this show right now, and there's nothing stopping us. If we wanted to sit down tomorrow and write a song together, I could write a verse, I could send it to Mike, he could write a chorus, and he could send it to Brian, he could write a bridge. And again, like you say, the sum of the parts would definitely be better than just each of us individually cracking out our thing. So love that.
It would have to be a comedy song for sure.
I'm thinking, yeah, three middle-aged white guys. There's some sort of premise there. The original odd
I reckon we should push ourselves and at least do an R&B song.
Yeah, create some beats. Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Mike, what say you? What's your tip here, number 4 on your
mine goes to music a little bit, because I was a little bit wary that we would become a little bit lyric centric, which I know I've known Brian for over a couple of decades, and we're both lovers of a good lyric. But I think sometimes we can underestimate. I mean, Brian happens to be a great musician as well, and does some wonderful things with his music. So I think he will understand this. But it's worth understanding the language of music as well as whatever spoken language that you speak in. Now, sometimes musicians get terrified when you mention theory, so you don't even have to really describe it in those terms. It's understanding things like tension, resolve, those types of elements of music. Now, you may do that completely by feel. You just may have an intuitive understanding of those types of things. But even with that, I found personally that there's a limit to that, that you tend to use the same sort of tricks again and again and again. So it's worth just investing some time to understand about how music works in that way, not just the chord names and what have you, but how music can emotionally affect people, tempo changes, key changes, all of that sort of good stuff, and it's all over YouTube now. Thankfully, you could look up diminished chords and find out how they work and how you can use them or what have you. And I encourage people to do that, because I'm rather disgusted with songwriting these days with the same 4 chords all the time. And I'm always saying to songwriters, we need you to write interesting songs, because music's in the mainstream at least has become a little bit bland. And so that's my tip, really, is just understand the language of music.
I think 4 chords might be a little bit generous there, Mike. I think a lot of songs are 1 chord these days. I think they start on a G and they end on a G, and never do they leave that G. And if only there was a guy look just like you with grey hair that put out videos and has 1 million subscribers that talks all about music theory. That would be great. That would be an excellent YouTube channel. We would love to see that.
You're talking about one of
Rick
my
Beato,
favorite people.
that's playing along at home. Love that advice. We are going to bring it on home. We're going to go with our final tips shortly, but we've got a couple of folks here in the chat. And I wanted to firstly acknowledge everyone that's been here live. If you're watching here live or if you're watching on the replay, what you can do is if you've got any questions or comments or things that afterwards you're like, I really wanted to know about that, drop it in the comments, because Mike, Brian, and I will all be trawling those comments for the next week before the next show over on Mike's channel, and we'll be answering and responding to every question and every comment that comes in there. So throw your comments down there. If you've got value tonight, and if you haven't been listening, then you can hit the like button, because yes, I think Mike and Brian have delivered here tonight. I knew Brian would deliver. I was absolutely shockingly worried about Mike, because I just didn't have know this much about songwriting. Here's a great question that's been thrown out here from one of my great subscribers here, Ultimato, and this is a good question. What are your thoughts on remastering or maybe remaking or re-recording or rewriting songs later down the road when you're more experienced in music production? So what do you two do? I really want to know, with those old songs or those nuggets or those ideas where you're like, okay, it was an okay song then. Do you bring that back to life, or do you kill it and write something new? Brian, we'll start with you. What's your approach with this question?
I believe that a song is never finished. It is only caught in a snapshot of time, and it can always be reworked and changed and jigged and improved and made to fit into different shaped holes.
Like it. That's a succinct and wise answer. Mike.
Yes. It's a slightly, look, I think what Brian said is important. I'm just going to talk from personal experience here. That I have occasionally re-recorded old songs. There's 1 or 2 songs in particular that I've gone back for even a 3rd or 4th go. But in general terms, old songs to me are they're just history, and they tend to be a little bit left there. But each to their own in that way. I don't really like to revisit old ground, but that's a personal choice. It's just that thing. But yeah, there's been some which you think, no, I could just do a little bit better now that I know what I know.
True. And I think that the reason I asked that, and I was hoping that you would have slightly differing opinions, because I wanted to reinforce the point here that I should have said at the very start of the show, and we normally say pretty much every week here, which is that music is a personal thing, and how you create is a personal thing, and everyone here is going to write songs in different ways, record in different ways, release their music and share their music in different ways, and everything is okay. And I think in the pre-show, Mike, you were talking about, you're like, music producers, musicians, music creators in general need to have fun and have a bit of a sense of humor, because we're pretty lucky.
I never said that.
No, I'm just putting words into your mouth. Nice shirt, by the way. Where can people pick up one of the? No, we'll talk about that later. People need to have a bit more fun with this, because musicians can take themselves so super seriously at times, to the point where you're thinking, are you actually enjoying this? Are you actually having fun? Are you enjoying the creative process, and are you enjoying sharing your music? So I think that's a really good point, is that you do things the way that are going to work for you, but let other people do things the way that they want to do. So there's no rules, there's no hard and fast, do this and don't do that. In fact, it's the opposite. I think one of you or both of you mentioned this as well, which is, just get out there and try things and put things, get up at 5 a.m, set your alarm, get your ideas out there, because you're going to be able to create good music. So we are going to go into our final round here, lightning round, let's say. And so we're going to start with Brian here, and bring us home, Brian, with your final songwriting tip, if you may.
Don't get too self-absorbed. Don't be too egotistical. Remember that music is not just about the music industry. It's about education. It's about entertaining kids. It's about sitting around a campfire. It's about howling at the moon like a wounded dog. It's about singing for your own and writing for your own enjoyment and therapy and expression. And I think just don't think in terms of I'm going to be famous one day. Think in terms of, why does a painter paint a beautiful masterpiece? That's the same motivation you should have as a songwriter.
Absolutely.
You have to
almost
follow that, Mike.
I know, and I can't. But I mean, we should have done this the other way around. I've known Brian for a long time, and he always manages to come up with something incredibly inspirational. And mine is just so horribly practical. But oh god, I don't want to say it now. To be honest, with you. I'm a bit thrown. But
is it like always go to the toilet before writing a long song?
Exactly right. That's exactly it. But I'm going to say it anyway because it might help some poor soul out. Because I'm thinking about ruts. People get stuck in ruts when you've been doing it for a few decades, like me and Brian. You do find dry spells once in a while. You go. One tip I had, and I've drawn this more and more recently, is particularly if you're a guitarist, for example, a guitar player. Venture out into other instruments and write songs on other instruments. It's remarkable what happens if you're a guitar player, especially, and you learn just enough on a piano to play a few chords and things. You will find yourself getting completely different things coming out, and you'll find a new songwriter within yourself to bring forth to the world, to bring harmony to the human. No, I was just trying to make it inspirational here.
Even a ukulele can really swing you around a corner.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Even I'd say one hanging in the background, they're just a bass guitar as well, because that will get you into, it's not chorded, but it will get you into a different space. It's much more rhythmic and do try and expand. It's a bit more difficult for pianists to go to guitar, I have to say, because the techniques are. But if you can, learn a different instrument, give it a go. And that can often get you out of a rut if you find yourself stuck in one, which we all do at times, by the way. Don't feel bad if you have a dry spell.
You can absolutely have a dry spell. We've got someone here who's feeling very sorry for you, Mike. So Jimmy P. Great tip,
Thanks.
Mike.
Thank you for the encouragement.
Bring it on home. We are very close to the end here, but we're going to finish off a little bit, and then we'll let both gentlemen. I'll do it in Mike and then Brian order, and then we're going to get Brian to play us a little bit of a tune to play us out on the show here, if he would be so kind to do so. But thank you to everyone that's been here live once again. If you're not subscribed to my channel, you can subscribe down there. Mike's channel, you can subscribe down there. Hit the like button if you got some value here tonight. You got 10 tips for free that are going to help you write better songs. I think that's pretty strong value. I just want to say thanks to Aaron Messia, to Just Because, Higgy Drums, Alan Cook UK, Ethan Lyon Music. We had Vachi from Recording Studio 9, Tom Calhoun, Storm Plays, Utamar, Jonathan, Johan Olivier, and a bunch of people that I'm not going to be able to scroll through fast enough to say your name. If you're watching on the replay, you're equally loved and important, and we love your work. So thank you for that. Drop your comment down below if you weren't here live and you've got a great question you want to ask Mike or Brian about songwriting. Here's your chance. Drop it in the comments. They will respond. If they don't, I'll respond calling them out on it. So we are going to finish up shortly. But Mike, do you have any parting thoughts before we let Brian actually eloquently finish off the show?
Oh, yes, Wilson. I do have a parting thought, and that's just to give a little bit of thanks, because what I didn't manage to say is Brian here is a very old friend of mine, not just a musical buddy. We've got quite a remarkable family history as well, as it happens, which I won't go into now. But what a great pleasure it's been to have him on the show. A very talented songwriter. I've known him for many years and heard some wonderful things come from his fingertips. And he's just a very lovely bloke to have on the show. So just a massive thank you to Brian. Good to see you, buddy. And I'm glad that we've been able to collaborate on something again.
Oh, it's always fun working alongside with you, Mike. And actually, the history that we have together is quite extraordinary. So, and just the sheer amount of life-changing projects that we've been involved in together. Wish we had time to discuss it. We haven't.
Yep.
Brilliant. So what we're going to ask is Brian, we've got to say thank you again there, and Aaron Masayas also thanks. Thank you for being here and for all the wonderful songwriting advice. Everyone's getting all inspired. They're all going to go off and write a bunch of songs here now. Do you have any parting words around? You've already given us your great tip there. Any parting words for the viewers here, or anything that they should be checking out to do with you? I will link those places where people can find you down below. But is there anything you want to say before we ask you to play a song and we put you on the spot?
Just that if you hear the words "an eye for an eye," you know that this is about revenge. Just those 3 words or 4 words convey a whole understanding. Stones and glass houses. So the proverbs that we all grow up with, they all make great song titles, and there's a song in every one of them. So if you're short on inspiration and you're looking for a quick fix to write a song, look at proverbs.
Brilliant tip once again. Now, we'll finish off here. If you wouldn't mind, if you're going to grab your guitar now, I need to warn people that we are on YouTube, which means that there's going to be some streaming quality going on here, but we couldn't have a songwriter of Brian's caliber on the show without listening to a tune. So, Brian, Mike and I are going to throw our volumes down. We're going to throw over to you and let you close out the show here. You can introduce your tune, and then we'll finish up. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Thanks to Mike. Thanks to Brian. Over to you, Brian, to close us out here.
Okay, yeah. Often when you're streaming, the guitar will sound all kind of digitalized and do all kinds of strange stuff. So hopefully it'll sound reasonable. But this is a little song that I wrote when I was sat in the middle of the desert looking at Ayers Rock or Uluru. And I found a real connection to my own ancestry, which is Scottish. So there I was looking at the rock, changing colour and writing a Scottish folk song, and somehow felt really right. Here we go. It's called The Tart Heart. Let me just get myself organised here. Do you hear the Gaelic calling within you? Return to the bonny shore, where the pipes on the wind echo down to the valley. The thistle be dancing slow. The thistle be dancing slow. Throughout the world's domain, the highlands call your name. Dear kindred, why did ye depart? Melodic Gaelic tongue beckons, when will ye return? It's the curse of a tartan heart. That's the curse of a tartan heart. The wind is a tyrant to the man on the sea. The devil be your rugged shore. Burn it deep within me like a fire in the hearth that glades down to Heathermore. I'll leave it there.
Yeah, thank you, Brian.
Love it. Fantastic.
Cheers, guys.
I think we will never have a better end to our show than that. So thank you to Mike. Thank you to Brian. Thank you to everyone for watching here, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.